There you go. Did you unmute it?
Yes.
Nobody there yet, though.
I don't think so. Pamela Smith is there.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
How you doing, Joy?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing okay.
Still warm weather.
Yeah, it's I want to complain, but it is not for October, right? This is sometimes
I
the nicest
know.
weather of the year, but it is pretty late in the season to be having this warm a temperature.
I know I want to replant some of my flowers. I plant seeds and they stay in all winter, but it's too warm. They'll start growing.
Yeah, I mean, even the existing plants with this temperature, you need to keep watering, otherwise they're going to
I
die.
know. Interesting times.
Yes, it most certainly is. No such thing as global warming.
No, it's just made up.
Yeah, it's that science stuff. So
Yeah, you know.
shouldn't go there, but couldn't
I
resist.
know, but I certainly see why you would. I would too.
Are you able to keep the deer from eating all your plants? We struggle over here.
Yeah, we have so many deer. We have a small herd and they have our back area is about an acre and it goes into the Garden of the Gods and the deer just they eat everything. So we just have things that they don't eat, We've had different trees, aspens don't last.
Right.
We find they don't like marigolds. Um,
That's good because we've gotten all the deer resistant stuff, and when they're desperate, there's like certain times of the year they'll eat that as well, and it kind of gave
no,
up
we
a lot of stuff.
we try to keep them from eating some of the younger pines,
Right.
but we just sort of live within their area and
Yeah, coexist.
pest and I get one flower on one of my plants and it's victory and then it's gone the next morning.
Yeah, we used
You
to
know, I,
we used to
we have
try and
water out, but we
yeah,
don't feed anything. We just have water for the birds and I assume the deer drink the water.
yeah, they drain our bird baths all the time.
Yeah. In fact, we went to metal big bowl because our bird baths kept getting tipped over by the bear.
Yeah, bear will go for the water as well.
So I guess we shouldn't complain if we live where wildlife is.
Yeah. Well, we also tried to grow produce on the deck,
Oh,
and all that ended up was the squirrels and whatnot would get up there, and Joan had a fresh crop of lettuce and was like, "Oh, hey, let's have salad for dinner," and went out there, and it was totally mowed down by the squirrels, and it was like, oh,
I know. I know right now we have so many acorns from the gumbo oak that, we have so many squirrels and we just let them do their thing.
yeah,
But yeah, you can't really, we have some friends who actually have a garden in their back area and they supply us with tomatoes and different kinds of things.
oh, cool,
So that works because they don't have deer.
right, yeah,
Too bad about your lettuce though.
yeah. I was looking forward to a nice salad. It didn't happen.
Hey everybody. If you can hear me, Luke's here, and I'm going to take off my mic and video for a moment until we get started, but I'm around.
Hey, Luke. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Joy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
I'm just trying to adjust all my volume because
Sounds
I'm
perfect
okay, good. Thank you.
to me.
I'm here.
Hello, it's Corey.
Hello.
How you doing, Corey?
Hey, Corey.
There we go. Join as a panelist. There we go.
Hey, James. Do you want to join us? Is it join as a panelist or?
Okay, I'm seeing we've got me. I see Carl. Don't see Bill. Got Luke. We got Rolf. Joy. Susan, I don't see. And Pam is here. And I saw James, and I think Juan's here. I'm thinking we give maybe one more minute. We're waiting on Susan and Bill. Then we'll get going. All right, well, I'm showing 5:06. So if staff's ready, I would like to call to order the October 23rd meeting of the Manitou Springs Mobility and Parking Board. And just for the record, we'll do a roll call. Pam, can you hear us? Looks like Pam has joined, but we can't hear you if you're speaking, Pam. We'll move on. Luke.
Hello, I'm here, present.
Gotcha. We can hear you just fine. Carl.
Perfect.
Present.
Joy.
Here,
And Rolf.
Here.
Try one more time for Pam. Can you hear us, Pam? And I don't see Bill and I don't see Susan. So we'll mark Bill and Susan absent. And it looks like Pam is here, but we can't hear her. Pam, maybe you could throw something in the chat, or do we have chat on here? Look like we have chat on here. James, you want to try your mic?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we got you. And I did hear Juan. Now I see Pam's got her hand up. So she's here somehow, but we're not able to hear you, Pam. Oh, guys, I'm getting a phone call from Bill Kerner. I'm going to answer it and see what he's got here. Okay, Bill just called and let me know he's got too much going on and is not able to join us. We've got quorum, and it looks like maybe Susan's trying to join. So we'll give one more try here. Susan, are you there and able to hear us?
there she is.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Yes. Hi,
Sorry,
Susan.
it took me a few minutes to get connected.
Okay, so we've got Bill. Bill is absent. Pam is here, but it looks like maybe her audio is not working. And otherwise, everyone's here online. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll jump right into it. Has everyone got the agenda? I was hoping to get a motion to approve the agenda.
You know, I don't have the agenda. I'm looking for it and I can't seem to find it. Maybe if somebody can refer me to a recent email or where on the website that it normally is, I just can't find it. I'm sorry.
I couldn't find it on the website, but I'm going to forward you the email here. Should have gotten it as an email. Anybody else need the agenda sent to them?
I think James sent out the packet and the agenda and an email, because I didn't see it published either. Unless
So we're
it's
gonna,
yesterday.
yeah, we'll get into a little update about our official documents and the website. But I think you're right, Joy, that we did have it sent out, and I wasn't able to locate it on the website. Okay.
Ori, I just got that email. Thank you.
Great. The only change I'll suggest to the agenda is I know Natalie's not going to be joining us, so we'll probably skip over the city council liaison report. Are there any other changes to the agenda? And if not, could I get a motion to approve the agenda with the revision that we won't have a council liaison report?
I'll
So
motion
move.
to approve.
Second.
Now I'm asking for any other discussion. That's old business. Okay. Any other discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, please indicate your support for the agenda by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
So we'll take that as unanimous. Is there any opposed to the agenda? Okay, so that passes unanimously. And now we've got the approval of the minutes. I didn't notice any changes to the minutes. Are there any comments about the minutes? If not, could we get a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So move to approve the minutes as written.
Thank
I
you,
second.
Susan. Is there a second?
I second it, Joy.
Joy, thank you. Any other discussion about the minutes? Hearing none, we will vote on the approval of the September minutes. Please indicate by raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to the minutes? That passes unanimously. Great. Okay, scrolling back on my agenda here. Next up is public comment on non-agenda items. James, have we got anyone in the public that might want to speak?
No, it doesn't look like we've gotten anyone.
Okay. So we don't have a council liaison report, and so we'll get into some presentations, starting with new business. And this is a discussion of the AMP. That's the Advanced Mobility Playbook grant discussion. Juan, are you able to talk about this? I think you attended a seminar about it, right?
Yeah. I can you put it on mute, Jamie?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so me and Roya did attend this this AMP. It's called the AMP grant, but then you have to submit it along with other cities, and then other cities, according to whoever has like the highest need, would get that grant. So I just didn't I didn't feel like it would be worth our time, and I just, on the other hand, I would rather just stay proactive looking for other grants that are guaranteed versus this one here. I don't feel it's a use of our time, from what I gathered from the information I gathered from the seminar. But there's still a lot of locations where we can locate those grants, for the future use. That's basically it. It was very short. It was about maybe 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Juan. I don't think we got any presentation material on this, so it was, there were some emails flying around about the potential for this grant, but it sounds like we don't have a recommendation to pursue it. Does anyone else have a comment about the AMP grant? And if not, I think we'll just move on from it. Okay, hearing none, we will move ahead, and we're going to get into some staff reports. So do you want to take this one, Juan?
Yes. Next slide. Yeah, so here's a Pike Ride report from September 2024. You can see the average time, average trip and distance. And one thing to add with the Pike Ride report, we did install the Pike Ride hub over at Tubby's. This week, hopefully by Friday, we're going to install the other one that's left over at Fields Park. But we do have the other one at Ruxton. We do have Ruxton, Cannon. And the last one, I believe, is that one, the Fields Park. And we should be able to start gathering the data for the other three, the additional three that we just installed. Next slide. Yeah, here are the numbers for September. You can see the difference between 23 and 24.
So fewer
A little bit fewer.
starts, but more ends in Manitou. That's interesting.
Yeah, but if you look at the last 4 months, it was a huge increase from well, even in April it was a slight increase, but from May, June, July, and August, it was a pretty good significant
So
increase.
Juan, do we maybe think that the fewer starts is impacted by the additional hubs coming online and stealing traffic from the existing legacy hubs?
I'm not sure, and like right now, it's kind of hard to say because we don't have the data for the new locations. But maybe once we start getting that data, which is I think next month we should start getting that data. We'll be able to make a closer comparison.
Okay, I think we can move on. I'm just, excited to see Pike Ride expanding, and it seems like a good direction. So we'll be watching that with interest. Next is SeeClick Fix. Is this one you, James?
Yes, so basically for the month of September, we had 23 total requests. Of those 23 requests, 20 of those were fully resolved. And just a little bit more of a detailed breakdown as far as what those requests were. We had 14 parking enforcement related requests. The ones that come through SeeClick Fix typically are going to be folks that are either so it'll either be like abandoned vehicles or vehicles that aren't moving very often that we need to monitor. We get a lot of RPP requests through the SeeClick Fix platform, and then occasionally some just illegally parked, whether it be in no parking zones or fire lanes. We'll get a few of those as well. Mobility requests. I want to say we had a couple for. We had one request for a sign to be put up on Midland Avenue at Arizona Road. We received complaints that vehicles are traveling at high rates of speed and there is no sidewalk up there, so it is shared with pedestrians and other form of traffic. So we did hang some slow down signs and pedestrians traffic signs up there to hopefully help with that, or at least bring awareness that other forms of traffic do use that roadway. I believe we got another sidewalk maintenance requests that's included in that, as well as a couple of requests regarding some of the benches around town. Two of them are down in the 200 or 300 block of Manitou Avenue near Becker's Lane, that we're in the process of addressing, but one is just an older bench that I think Metro brought from another area, that's completely different than a lot of the other benches that we have in town. And then we did have a few maintenance requests. Two of those were for pay stations that we have here in town. We were able to get one of those back up and running. The other one we're still working through some issues with that, but we do have a plan in place to get that one working again as well. And that pretty much rounds out for the request for the month of September. As far as work orders, we do have 8 that are currently open. A couple of those are signage requests. One is for the east end of Manitou Ave. And then there's a outdated sign that we need to address near Hiawatha. And then I believe we've got a couple of those bench requests that are still open in the work orders. So nothing major. C-click fix wise for us at the moment. And then as far as highlights for us, as far as things that we did address, I already went over the Midland Avenue, Arizona Road area. We did reinstall the green bench in front of the town clock. So that's now compliant with the historic district requirements. And then we did remove the non-compliant benches that we did add to some of the bus stops downtown. We will have to wait to be able to purchase green benches to get those put back out. And then, of course, we repaired several pay stations downtown that went down after some recent updates. Any questions regarding the C-click fix for this month?
Sounds like no questions.
And is this still a format that you guys like seeing? Is this more helpful?
I'm gonna say yes. I think the pulling out of the highlights is a useful thing for us. I still feel like I'm getting up to speed on this. So having your thoughts about it and the highlights, I think is valuable.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad it's in a more digestible form. And as always, if you ever have any feedback for me, just let me know.
Right. Thank you, James. So next up is Mountain Metro.
All right, same story with this. I did provide 2 months in there because the last meeting they didn't quite have the August numbers ready yet. So I did put both August and September in this document. And those both are obviously going to be reflected in the charts that I have here. And then, of course, any questions or feedback on any of the presentation or.
James, I have one comment, and for you and I guess for the whole group. It's interesting looking at the ridership numbers. There looks like there's a fairly decent trend where ridership is higher on the weekends versus weekdays. And just from the perspective of, hey, trying to expand service and trying to expand service as smartly and efficiently as possible. And, an intermediate way to do that might be to try and increase weekend service frequency versus 7 days a week. I don't know if that's ever been considered or discussed before, but just wanted to throw that out there.
I think that makes sense. I don't know if it's come up at all. That'd probably be a better question for Roy, because I know he's more involved with the dialogue between Mountain Metro than we typically are. But Juan, do you have any insight on that?
No, not right now. I know the one thing that
Yeah.
one of the things that we try to do is that we present our budget. In our budget meeting, we did try to one of the things that we try to do because of the ridership numbers is to look at the option of running the operation internally just for Route 36. And but council, after presenting it to council, that's something that they don't want to do at this point for this year. For 2025, they would they're open to it in 2026, but for 2025 right now, they just want to focus on the deal in. But I do see that trend on Route 36 for the weekends, and we're going to keep tracking that ridership to eventually, hopefully, we can do that operation internally.
Juan, I've got a question. I'm not sure you'd be able to answer it today. I'm intrigued by Carl's suggestion, and I wonder what is the process if we were to identify what we thought was a good idea related to Metro? What is the process and timing for us to make that recommendation? And I have a related sort of comment, and that is, I've heard in speaking with some council members that we've asked Mountain Metro if we can have a bus that goes to Safeway, and they tell us no. And I'm just wondering, what form does that no come in? I mean, they're in the business of running buses, so how could their answer be no? It doesn't make sense to me. But I have to admit, I don't really understand how we interact with Mountain Metro and what's the right way for us to elevate those questions and requests.
Yeah, so there's 2 times a year where we can make that request. I think the one that's coming up is in December, and then the second one is in April. They usually present the options beforehand, and one of the things that we could do is have them do a presentation with us, with the map board, and so once they do the presentation with us, we can discuss the option of going to Safeway, and then we go to council to get that approval. For not just going to Safeway, just any kind of route change requires for us to which we want to do every single time we make a decision, bring it to the board, and then after we make a decision within our group, then take it to council to see if we get approval for it.
Okay,
And
I know we don't have a meeting scheduled in December, so can we get on the list to have Mountain Metro give a presentation prior to the April meeting? Is that something that you can take as a staff action to get us lined up to have a meeting with a reasonable time frame so that we might be able to make recommendations at the April time frame?
Absolutely.
And
we could do that.
My second request would be, given that we don't have a meeting in December, could we ask that everyone on the board gets notified when that discussion is going to happen with council, between Mountain Metro and council, and perhaps we could just join that council meeting as members of the audience. We may get, we might ask the mayor if some members of this board would have a chance to engage in that conversation. It may or may not be possible, but it'd be nice if we could at least get an invitation so that those on this board that are interested could participate in that discussion.
Yes, we could do that.
And do you know has the date already been set for that, for the Mountain Metro meeting in December?
I would have to I would need to check with Elena on that, and I can email everyone.
Okay.
I've got a question along Mountain Metro lines. If there's any suggestions or problems that we see in Manitou, of course we use SeeClickFix. But do you know of any protocol of how to report any Metro related suggestions directly to Metro as a citizen?
Yeah,
Not
I can send you
from this board, but
yeah, I could send you an email where all the complaints go, for anyone. So it goes to the contractor for Mountain Metro, but then Mountain Metro also gets copied on that, and they usually follow up on the complaint. But I can send you that email where any concerns for incidents or any complaints.
yeah, that would be good. I think it'd be good just to have and to understand the process of how to it kind of boils back to what Corey was saying, just how to interact with that entity.
Sure. Yeah, I can send you that information. Just recently I had a customer complain because the bus driver was pretty rude to him. So I took his complaint, put it in an email and send it to the contractor, and then Mountain Metro's automatically copied on there. So they usually follow up with the complaint.
Do you think it would be advantageous to send them to you? I mean, in my opinion, your email has more weight than a lot of people.
Yeah. Either way, they could always. That's what they usually do. They send it to me, and then we'll usually email that to them, and we usually get a pretty good response.
Cool. Thank you.
I guess I have a somewhat related question. It's not exact. It's more on the C-click fix thing, I guess. James, you mentioned that some of the inquiries you get on C-click fix relate to RPP. I'm wondering, what is if I've got a neighbor that says, hey, I'm seeing someone parking in the RPP, what should they do? Should they fill out a C-click fix, or should they call a hotline, or what would be the best way if
Any of
somebody
the
wanted to
above,
report illegal parking?
I personally like the hotline number more, because it allows us to be responsive. Because the hotline number, that's where we have that from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Every day. So that one's basically guaranteed to be answered, and then we can get someone on it right away. The C-click fix, I check that as often as I can, but it wouldn't be as direct. So I would say hotline number is more direct, and that would allow us to address issues more urgently. C-click fix, I stay on top of those as much as I can, and I do get emails for those. So both work, both are effective. We address both.
For the RPP requests, did you approve those? Or it's been a while since I've reviewed that process. Does the board look at those? Is that just a staff decision?
Yeah, so it's just a staff-driven review. So they'll submit the complaint, we'll review. If it's valid, we'll take action, and then we'll document if it's completed, when it was completed, what actions we took, sort of
Cool.
thing. And that's pretty much how we handle those complaints. So it's a good avenue for a lot of those to be submitted. We're good with both getting used. They both get heavy use as it is, so we're used to checking and keeping up with both.
And
Yeah.
for the sake of the minutes here, do you have it handy, James, the number that people would call the parking hotline?
Oh, I can give you a quick rough estimate.
For the phone number?
Yeah.
It
I
is
think-
curious though, while he's looking that up, I get emails from C-click fix as a curious bystander. It says things that you might be interested in. And so I do get notified when my neighbors report different things. And I have seen the recent the RPP requests, and I agree with some of them. I mean,
So-
particularly on some of these bigger weekends that we'll see.
And just to be clear, Luke, like we're talking, I think there's maybe two topics. One is, hey, I see someone parking without a tag and an RPP. And then the other question is, hey, I think maybe we need an RPP in this neighborhood and we don't have one yet.
The one that I saw recently was how do we go about, it was a general inquiry of how to get an RPP because they didn't have one, and they were seeing more systemic problems. They're not one-off things. It's like, oh man, it seems like they're always starting to park here, and they're inquiring about how to get an RPP. At least that's the one that I saw this month.
Okay, we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. It's actually going to be on our agenda later when we talk about some of our goals. So we'll come back to that part. For now, I was just trying to figure out what's the best way to report when someone's parked illegally in an RPP.
But yeah, the parking hotline, to answer your question, just going back over like the last week and a half, I would say we get about 5 to 7 calls a day on that.
And can you tell me the phone number and we can put it in our minutes?
Yeah, so it's 719
Yep.
301 8413.
Okay. So when someone asks me, hey, what do I do if someone's parked illegally? I'll tell them to call that number.
Yep, it's a great number. If they have issues with paid parking, if they have issues with parking complaints, that's a good number to call.
Great. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions about Mountain Metro? And if not, let's roll into the next item, which is Ruxton Improvement Project update.
Yeah, I did some research about the Ruxton improvement projects. Do you have it on mute, James?
Oh, sorry.
On the Ruxton improvement projects, and right now, just checking with our city engineer, they're still working with CSU. He told me that they're still working on a contract because they're working together on it, and they probably won't start any kind of improvements until late 2025 or 2026 from right now. So he didn't have too much information because they're still working with CSU on that.
Okay, so nothing imminent, and when things start to move, then I'd expect we would hear something more about that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great.
And then the next item, just to give everybody an update on the tram. So, as you all know, they're on consignment. We have them on consignment right now. They haven't had any success yet of selling them because we are requesting 75%, not more. 75% is what we're accepting of the value, the full value of what we bought them for. And right now, I just requested an update a couple of days ago, and they told me they have an open house, for all shuttles and trams coming up in a couple of weeks. So they expect to have some success to get them sold, and they'll give us an update in a couple of weeks on that.
Okay, thanks for that, Juan. And I just want to make sure that we're clear because I have heard some conflicting reports. Sometimes I've heard, hey, we're going to get full money back under warranty on those shuttles. And I think that's not accurate. What's accurate is we're not planning to put them back in service. We've got them on consignment, and right now we're hoping to get 75% back, but we haven't had any takers. So it's unclear how much, if any, we'll get back for those E-trams.
Yeah, and to add to that, I know I did talk to Denise this week about that. If in the next 2 to 3 weeks they don't get them sold, one of the things that we're thinking about is bringing them back here to our location and just have our JT, who is our the one that deals with all of our fleet, put them put them out to to sell on his website, like where they have auctions, to see if we can get more money for them.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks for the clarity on that one.
Okay.
Okay, and then the next update was this documents on demand, and I wanted to specifically thank Joy for bringing this up last time. I think, Joy, it was you that mentioned you were looking online and we were missing a lot of documents from the past. And so I think we've taken a look into that. And James, can you let us know what you're able to find out?
Yeah, so I did get access to the documents on demand site. And I did start to figure out how to get stuff uploaded. And I think I uploaded a couple of documents that mainly what I'm trying to do now is just go back and see if I can compile all the documents, and then I can just upload those all at once. So yes, I'm working on that now and should hopefully be able to get that up to date here soon.
Thanks, James.
And is it right, or I mean, does anybody know if the agenda for this meeting we're in right now, is it available on the city site? I wasn't able to get it.
It should be.
I found it on the site about an hour ago, so
Okay.
the agenda and the packet.
Okay. Actually, now that I'm looking at the site, I think maybe I was able to find it. So maybe we should all maybe get used to trying to look around there. And meanwhile, James is trying to get us back into up to date with some of the previous ones. So we'll look forward to some more updates on that. Okay. Um, unless there's an objection, we will move on to other improvement updates from Juan. Let's go.
Yes. So on the Black Canyon open space, I know I sent an email to everybody a while back, and I wasn't sure if any of you got to go, but I know we did. I did go initially to the first one. They had two of them, two walkthroughs. The first one I went, it was very preliminary, just to showing us a space where they plan on creating that path. And we're also looked at parking, if we have a crosswalk, a parking area, where would that be? Um, they will be having another meeting at once you gather all the feedback to city council, and that would be the opportunity if you want to attend again to share, give any input or feedback on your thoughts.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on this because I was able to attend a walkthrough. It was the publicly announced walkthrough that was on last Friday afternoon. And first of all, as a resident of Manitou, I'm really excited about this open space. I think it's going to be a great new amenity for our community. I did identify myself as a member of the Mobility and Parking Board, and I think what jumped out to me as important for this board is, right now the main parking access area is going to be, I think it's El Paso there, right at the bottom of Garden Drive. So if you're familiar where the road goes up into the Balance Rock and up towards Cedar Heights and everything, the public access is going to be to park along El Paso there. And right now there is no crosswalk. It's kind of a weird diagonal. It's not clear how you would get over to where they're proposing to start the trail. That would be sort of the northwest corner. There would be a trail, a sort of unimproved trail that's protected from the road that walks along the Cedar Heights Road to get you to access to that open space. But I think what's important maybe for this group is I would imagine that we would probably like to recommend that we evaluate what kind of crosswalk and some kind of controls for people that are parked on El Paso and want to get across El Paso right by the over the Highway 24 overpass and get up to that new open space. Carl.
Is the assumption that all users of this open space will always be driving a car to get there?
No.
I mean, the crosswalk that would be proposed would also be directly off of the Creek Walk Trail and also directly across the creek from the Dillon Micromobility Hub, which presumably would have eventually a new bridge too. So, I mean, that whole area is going to be pretty non-car centric, in my opinion.
So what about bike parking? Is the expectation they'd park at Dillon and then walk across?
There's also the Schreiber. There's also the Schreiber lot where you can also put your bike. The other location we're looking at is right under the bridge. There's I don't know if you've seen that fenced in area. We're also looking at that area to potentially maybe create more space, for biking, parking, to just open it up for more forms of transportation in there.
I really like Carl's thought though of having some kind of bike rack at the trailhead.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea and easy to implement. I know for me, I'd like to visit the space on my bike, so I'd probably ride from my house and want to get safely across Pikes Peak and then ride my bike up into that would be a mountain bike. But if you wanted to, take Pike Ride and then go park somewhere, probably the Dillon would be, in the future will be the closest place that you would ditch your Pike Ride and then walk over to use that open space. But either way, I think we want to get some kind of safe connection from the Creek Walk side up into that new open space. And so what would be the process here, Juan? Would you like a recommendation from this group that we'd like to start seeing some investigation of that, or how will that play into the development? I think, the work that's being done, there's consultants that are working on it, but they're not really working on the traffic crossing and parking and access. They're working on the open space itself.
Yeah, I think that they do have a representative from that group that you met with, and he is a point of contact to give them all your feedback and input. And I can send that information over to you. But yeah, just like you mentioned, letting them know that you're part of the mobility and parking board.
Yeah, well, the role of this board is to make recommendations to council, really. I mean, I guess I wouldn't feel right directly recommending to the consultant. Even if this board were unanimous, I think what we'd want to do is make sure that council knew, or somehow coordinate it with OSAC.
Right. So that would be the first step. The second step would be when it gets presented to council, and then you'll be, just like every time, you'll be able to voice your input and feedback onto them.
Okay, so for now, you would recommend that I could write to the consulting group and say, hey, based on, I think we should probably take a vote on it here just to make sure that I'm understanding it. But if we were to agree that we want some traffic control or some kind of safe crossing, we could voice that directly to the consultant on the Black Canyon project.
I would caution us, since it's just in the stage of being developed and you have OSAC involved and council involved, it's a little premature for us to make recommendation for bike racks and other things. I think to allow it to develop, and then when things are being presented, which will be presented to council, to give feedback. But I'm not comfortable on voting for something when I don't really know yet, or anyone knows completely what is being developed. I think we're jumping into something that we're not ready really to comment on. And voting, to me, I couldn't vote on something I don't know what I'm voting on.
Well, what you'd be voting on is, it is a fact that Manitou owns this space, and they're going through a planning process for the space itself. And so I guess
it just began. I mean, we're at the very beginning stage, and I'm not prepared as a member of this board. I suppose individual board members could do it, but I wouldn't want the board represented as the board supports this when it's not the board. It would be some members of the board. I would just be cautious. It seems like we're jumping ahead of where we're going to go. And Denise would know, of course, where the Black Canyon discussion is going to be on the agenda, but I don't believe it's going to be on an agenda really soon, since it's already almost November.
I would like to respectfully completely disagree with you, Joy, in the fact that I believe that as soon as we get our intentions known, the earlier in the process, the better. And they can take that into the planning stages and do with it what they will. What I don't want to see is us being behind the 8 ball, and they've already developed a budget and there is no more money for bike racks. And we were just a second thought. Whether or not they choose to take our recommendations in the beginning, that's up to the professionals and up to the staff and up to city council. But in my opinion, I believe our voice should be heard as early as possible.
And I would disagree with you respectfully that we're jumping the gun and that we're not quite ready to make those things. And council will involve the community. We'll all be involved, and I don't think we're being shut out. It's not like Mountain Metro having 2 legal times to make changes to routes. So, I would disagree with you.
Okay, thanks, Joy and Luke. Any other thoughts around that, Carl?
So I just wanted to throw one other thing out there. Just again to ask about how we expect users to be using the open space, and hey, if I'm a citizen of Colorado Springs taking the bus and and I want to go to the open space, how are they going to get there, right? And are we making that easy and convenient such that we're encouraging them to not drive and park their personal vehicle in Manitou? And so is there a convenient option to take the number 3 and a convenient bus stop and clearly marked signage, potentially to direct them to the open space. And on the second topic, I agree with Luke. I think getting out there before things are poured in concrete, cast in stone, is important. So thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Carl. I've got some ideas about the process part of it here, but I would like to hear if there's anyone else from the board that would like to share thoughts about that, and then I'll got a strong direction.
I have no comment on that.
Okay. All right. So I want to be clear. I really heard what Joy said here, and I want to be cognizant that we don't have enough information right now, I think, to make really specific recommendations. But I do think it would be appropriate for us as a board, you know, if it's all right with staff, if we can get an agreement from this board to say, hey, the Mobility and Parking Board is really interested in this. We envision that people will want to visit this space on foot, by bike, by bus, and also by car. And we intend to be involved. And as plans develop, we will be forming some specific recommendations, but we're not ready to do that yet. But please know that we're watching this, and we will be advocating for safe access, including a safe way to get across Pikes Peak. I think that's in bounds without being too specific. That's how I would see it as the chair in terms of process. Juan, would you be able to support that direction if it were the will of the board?
Yeah, and at the same time as I'm getting updates from Jillian and this board, I'll email everybody to just keep everybody in the loop of what's going on ahead of time.
And Joy, can I ask for your feedback on that, about making sort of a, not specific recommendations, but a general statement of intent and acknowledging the different modes that people will want to visit this open space, and let them know that we want to be engaged in that directly?
No, I wouldn't agree with that, Corey. It seems like a different way to say the same thing, that we're going to do this and do that, when we don't have the information. So I can't really comment on things I don't know until I know. I think Juan represents us well. He understands us, and he can let us know when it's time, so that we don't lose out on any time to set things up. But there's so many questions about open space as a philosophy and usage and all kinds of stuff. We need to keep it broad. So I wouldn't, you know, if you want to vote and say this is the will of the board, as long as, you know, those who don't agree can have their no votes recorded, that's how it usually works.
Okay. All right. Well, so with that, is there anyone who's interested in making a motion to express a general intention to be involved with this project as a board, and to recognize the various modes that people will want to visit this open space, without getting into specifics of the infrastructure that we think should be there? Not hearing a motion on that right now. Okay, so I think we'll move on. And I think, just so everyone's clear, my intention is I will give some feedback to the consultant, and I will let them know that although I'm a member of the board, our board hasn't taken a position on this at this time. Okay. All right, thanks for that discussion, you guys. Okay, moving on from Black Canyon, crosswalk signage and other improvements. Juan?
Yeah, right now, currently. Matter.
Did anybody else lose one? I kind of lost one.
I couldn't hear that last
One, you're
one.
cutting out.
Okay,
Lost you once.
can you hear me now?
Barely.
Can you hear me now?
I think so, yep.
Okay, yeah,
I
no,
can
on
hear
the,
you.
okay, on the crosswalks, we're trying to wrap up everything by the end of the month. Right now, we're trying to finish all the crosswalks on Manitou Avenue, and we hope to accomplish that before, by November 1st. Signage, we're still, that's still in our inventory. We're still improving our signage as we go along. I don't have any other improvements at this time, other than the crosswalks that we're working on. And as far as the Dillon Mobility Hub, right now we're gonna have our next general meeting next Wednesday. Right now we've been working closely with Mount Metro just to look at the entries and exit at the Dillon, because there's some concerns of having enough space to turn around and come back out on Manitou Avenue. So we're working on those layouts right now. Next week we're gonna be looking at both the Chase Bank and also the Dillon to see how we're gonna incorporate both of them on
And sorry,
entries.
Juan, could you clarify? You said next week and on Wednesday, and are those public meetings, or is that sort of like just a staff kind of a level thing?
Just staff. Yeah, right now it's just really staff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not with the public at all right now. We are going to have a public engagement meeting, and that's going to be held December 21st.
I've got
There's
November 21st on my
November 21st. But there is one that we're going to be going to council just to do the presentation before we do the community engagement, and that's going to be on the 19th.
Okay. So once again, there will be a presentation at council on the 19th of November related to the
Yes.
Dillon, and then a public meeting that I think we would encourage everyone to go to, and that's going to be on the 21st of November. And do you
Correct.
have a time for that meeting, the public meeting on the 21st?
I believe it's 5:00, but I can confirm that and let everybody know.
Yeah, if you could please. Someone told me they sort of heard a rumor that it was like an afternoon meeting, like a 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So like to get that clarified. What time on November 21st the public meeting is?
Sure, I can do that for everyone. And that's so far. I don't have anything else regarding the Dillon at this time.
Okay. Any other questions for staff on the crosswalk improvements or the Dillon? Okay, so let's see. We're going to get into the walkable city rules, and just as we do that, I'm going to ask James. I want to give you a heads up. If you can get ready when we get later in the agenda, we're going to talk about last year's goals and goal setting for this year. Can you be ready to put up on screen what our last year's goals were so we can look at them together when the time comes?
Yeah, I've got that ready to go already.
You're the man. All right, thank you. All right, go ahead, take it away, Juan.
Yeah, so I sent everybody a summary of all the notes that I took, and these were mainly focused on the main points for everything. That was. Do you have it up? So I started with walking down to biking, parking, shuttles, and then I did a summary of the potential implications for residents, businesses, and visitors for both walkability and biking. From the positive impact, the negative impacts, and then the concerns. So from all this information, I did send out an email, and I don't. Let's see if I can pull it up. Because one of the main important things for this for the 2025 goals is that they needed to be SMART goals. So I jotted down a few that I got from all the summary of everything that I recorded over all of our study. That has everything from final thoughts and key takeaways from the education information, overcoming barriers, what inspire, the inspiration on these books, and then exploring just other resources. But when I came to the SMART goals, I did send out an email. I think it was on Friday, just to give everybody an idea of something that we can think about. Because I know we worked on 3 goals, and we were going to work on maybe possibly another 2 to 3 goals from this book. And I also offered for everybody who had any ideas to also share them with everyone.
Yeah, and so this will be a bit of a spoiler because we are going to talk about our goals in a bit later in this agenda. We've got identified 3 proposed goals that we think make sense. And then our hope with the book study is we might, as a group, be able to agree on two goals that came out of the book study that we would adopt as goals for the committee. And I want to make sure everybody's on the same page about, we're talking about SMART goals. So those are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. SMART. And Juan, in your email, it actually said SMART. Was that a typo, or is there another R on the end that I need to know about?
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, we're trying to get some goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And the goal with what we're doing right now is we'd like to see if we could, from the book, can we pick 2 SMART goals that we would like to consider for 2025, right?
Correct.
And so I hope everyone's had a chance to take a look at the email Juan sent out. I think it was, when did I get it? It was on the 18th.
Right.
And in that email, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Juan, you've pulled out 6 potential goals that you think we might want to consider.
Correct.
Those aren't on the screen right now. James, are you going to be able to throw up those the 6 that Juan had whittled it down to?
He's pulling it up.
I'm going to say, I think, we did that book study and it took a long time. And so I feel like I need to spend a bit more time with your distillation of what came out there. So thanks for doing that work to go through and to consolidate the book study. And I'm looking forward to spending a bit more time kind of processing that. And I guess in this document, we'd be focused on the sort of immediate within the next year kind of things, right?
So just to clarify, you want the last year's goals, right? Or is, because this is the one that Juan had sent out in the email, I believe.
There's an email.
Maybe I've got
Draft the list of recommendations.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
well, actually, what you've got on screen there, I'm not sure I've got that. What I'm seeing on screen here is that, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. Did I miss seeing that?
I think he just has a screen a different color.
Yeah, it looks similar, Corey.
Okay. Okay.
If that's throwing y'all off, I can switch it.
Well, that's okay. I can't read it, but I've got it open here. So I think there was a 7-page attachment that Juan sent that sort of was the overall distillation. And right, that's looking more familiar. And then Juan, inside the body of that email, you had pulled out 6 potential goals that we might consider. And I think our task right now would be, can we highlight 2 of the 6 that we would think are priorities and goals we might consider for 2025?
That is correct. And I'm sending it to you, James.
Yeah, so the document I have up is not the same?
That's not it. I emailed it to you so you can pull it up.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
The one is kind of related to the Dillon. One is related to shuttles for a specific event. One is related to expanding the use of Pike Ride. One is to look at expanding residential bike parking. One is for an informal walkability inventory. And the last one is to work with the chamber to host a citywide bike walk to school or work day to promote walking and biking.
Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay.
I can see it there. It's way too small for me to read.
Okay. Is that any better?
Yep, that's better.
Yes, thank you.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so those are the 6 that we've got here.
Did anyone else have any other ideas?
Recording in progress.
Well, I really like the idea of inventory.
Gosh.
Inventory is one of those basic steps, I think, that came out of the summary of the book that would be useful for us. A good starting place. That seems like a good starting place for an overall walkability assessment. So I'd love to see that one.
I'm going to agree with you, Susan, and also note, and this is a spoiler for some of, I mean, we might actually, it might make sense for us to talk about the other 3 goals that we had discussed and to see how, these might fit in with those. Because that actually fits in with one of the 3 goals that were identified outside of this. I'll get to that in a second, but I see, Carl, you've got your hand up.
I was just going to say, I like the inventory as well, but I would love to see that expanded to maybe include a couple residential areas or, like the Ruxton corridor or safe routes to school. So doing like a walk audit and not just focusing on downtown, but other areas that could use walkability improvements. And it doesn't have to be the whole city, it could be like, hey, we'll do walk audits for 2 neighborhoods or, the high school or whatever. But just trying to expand it beyond the downtown core.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Carl, do you still have your hand up, or is this?
I have additional things to consider, but I don't want to dominate the conversation. So if when it's appropriate, I have some others to throw out there.
Well, I think what I'd like to do is just kind of, on the topic of the goals for next year, I'd like to just sort of throw out, I had a chance to meet with James and Juan last week and talk through last year's goals and, which ones looks good for rolling over or how we did. And we're going to get more into that in a minute. But there are three goals that we agreed we thought would be appropriate, and we were going to, get input from this group on. So I want to tell you what those are so that we can consider these, the book study ones in that context. So one is to try a pilot project of some improved mobility infrastructure. So try a pilot in 2025 at some location and get good at pilots and understand what kind of things we need to measure and how we might do pilot projects into the future. A second one was a rollover from a 2024 goal that we did not achieve, and that was to look at the RPP program and to do an update of that RPP. The RPP was set in place when we had SP1, a contractor, and it was an accepted goal that was presented to council and was approved, and we didn't make any progress on that this year. And so that was one that we thought we would probably try to roll over. And then the third goal that we thought would be appropriate for 2025 was to move into a bike master plan, a bikeability master plan. There's already some money in the budget for 2025 for that, and we can talk some more about the budget. And as a part of a bikeability master plan, we definitely wanted it to include consideration of PED infrastructure, and therefore an inventory of existing PED infrastructure would fit into a bikeability master plan for Manitou. And therefore, I'm thinking it probably doesn't need to be a separate goal. It would actually roll into that bike master plan goal. Juan and James, did I represent that properly based on our discussions?
Yeah, I believe we did. It
Yeah,
sounded like you covered everything.
right. That is correct.
So now I'm trying to figure out, I mean, do we really need to talk about those goals and get, do we want to get alignment on those three goals and then come back and look at these and say, okay, what would be two more complementary goals that would come out of the book study? And if that makes sense, then I'm actually going to ask if we could pause on this for a minute, go look at our 2024 goals, what we achieved and what we didn't achieve, talk through and see if we've got agreement on those three goals that I mentioned, and then come back to this and see if we can pick out two more goals.
I think that'll help. Thank you.
Any objection to that shifting around like that?
No.
Okay. Apologies for that change of course there. So James, would you be able to bring up the 2024 goals that were presented to council?
Yep, give me just a moment here. Okay. Yeah. Everybody see that okay?
I can tell it's there, but it's super small. Can you make it any bigger, James?
You sure can.
Okay, so if we look at goal number one, okay, so goal number one is broken into two parts. One is to update and streamline RPP, and the second part was to analyze data to make actionable recommendations on three things. And my assessment of that is we didn't make any progress on the RPP part of that goal number one. And that's why I was suggesting that we would roll it over to make it a goal and try to identify some people that would like to help work on that on the map board. And the second part, the analysis of data to make actionable recommendations, I don't feel that we did that as a board, but I do know that there was action on that by staff. And so one thing that we'll do for our 2025 goals is to make it really clear whether we're saying this is a mobility and parking department goal versus a mobility and parking board goal. And we'll focus, you know, obviously for our board, we'll focus on actions that we can take as a board. Any comments on my assessment there of goal number 1?
I'm just,
Oh,
just a little confused about it's a staff decision now in the RPP. And I'm not sure what the necessity of saying a board goal or a staff goal. I'm not sure why we're dividing this. I haven't seen it divided that way before. SP Plus didn't really have anything to do with RPP. I was on the board then. So I'm just a little confused about why there's this division that the staff will have a goal and we will have a goal about RPP. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, so Joy, these were presented as goals from this board to City Council last year.
Yes, I know that, Corey, but now that it used to be the board made decisions on RPP. Now we don't. So I'm not sure what you're saying. I understand. I mean, I'm aware of things. So I just was confused about why we're separating the staff and the board, but it's just a comment.
Okay, well, so the observation is we didn't do anything about RPP last year, and staff did some things about the other part of goal 1, which is the progressive parking rates and some studies and some traffic calming. And so, you know, as we're trying to set goals and objectives for our board, I feel it's valuable for us to know, like, what do we need to be focused on? Obviously, we want to support staff in the work that they're doing, but if we mix together, well, you know, between the board and the staff, we want to do some things, but it's not clear who does what. It doesn't make sense to me that we would go to council and say, hey, guess what? These are our goals for next year, but we're not sure if the board or the staff is going to work on them. So my intention for 2025 is we make it really clear when we go to council and say, hey, these are our goals for the year for 2025, and they're goals that we've got as a board.
Well, they always are presented that way. I'm not sure what the issue is. We always present our board goals to council. So I'm not sure what the issue is.
Okay, so do you see goal number 1? And there's two bullet points.
Yeah, Corey, you don't need to walk me through it. It's not something I want to go through now. So go ahead and move on. Thank you.
Okay, Carl, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just 2 comments. So one, I think Joy is probably right. It's a little bit unclear what the proposed RPP goal would be for 2025, and that's a fair comment to ask for clarification. I will say, like on the 2024 goals, if I were asked to present what we'd accomplished on goal 1, you know, we haven't done anything on the streamlining the RPP program. And we as a board did nothing around quarterly progressive rate analysis or parking field studies or traffic calming. Staff did. And so, you know, maybe that was a goal that shouldn't have been included in the MAP board goals last year.
That's exactly what I'm saying, Carl.
You know, so for me to sit in front of council and them to say, hey, what did you accomplish on this? Staff accomplished a lot because they do a lot with a very small amount of resources. But as a board, we did nothing to contribute to that. And
right,
so for us to claim success for that is not something I would feel comfortable doing.
Yeah, I don't think we can claim success. I think we can say 1A, we didn't address it at all, and 1B, we as a board didn't, but staff made some progress on that. I think we're on the same page about that.
Yeah, and if we had the data to do and staff came to us and said, hey, can you help us do analysis on progressive parking and make suggestions, you know, as a board, we could definitely tackle that, but that was not the case in 2024.
Yeah. Okay, and so, yeah, I mean, that I had exactly the same observation, and that's why I was saying, you know, we had this approved goal of updating and streamlining the RPP, which hasn't, that document hasn't been changed to reflect the current needs of Manitou since we had SP Plus, and that was an approved goal, and we didn't make progress on that at all. And that's why I'm proposing that we would roll that over as a goal for 2025, and it would include, a problem statement, like what exactly do we, what isn't working, what aren't we following, what's not working properly with RPP, and then propose some changes to it. Is that making sense? Okay, so I'm going to take that as, yeah, we can say RPP, we're going to roll into a goal for 2025, and we will take it on. And the analysis of data, we didn't make progress, and we see that staff is working on that, and we're not proposing to roll that on, and we're not proposing to take that on, and we can see what council has to say about it. Seem okay?
Makes sense.
Okay. Goal number 2 was the book study. And if we dig into some of these, there are some specific things that's clear we didn't do. We didn't have a community discussion. We didn't do a demonstration pilot. But we did do, we did go through, and we spent time over this last year reviewing the book, and we've gotten to a point where we've got a short list of some recommendations, and the hope is that we're going to be able to pull some goals out of that book. And so I wouldn't call that a slam dunk, but I would say we've made some progress on goal number 2. It's certainly not complete the way it's written here. Does that feel right to you guys?
I think that goal 2, now that we've completed the book and now that we have a pretty good understanding of the topics, I feel more comfortable looking at these, right, and pretty much rolling them over into 2025. Now that we have a good understanding of what the book was about, what our framework is, now we can have those community discussions, right? Now we can, if we were to host one, we can have one with the framework of what walkable city is. So I think that was the kind of, in my mind, that was the whole purpose of this book, is to give us framework of how to manage our goals moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. So if I hear you right, Luke, so can you agree we did do our book study, but we didn't do the 4 bullets exactly? I guess the
Right,
first bullet,
Yeah.
But those bullets would be, we're talking about which ones are we going to keep and which ones are we going to roll over and which ones are we going to continue to work on. Yeah, we didn't hit those, but yeah, like you said, it wasn't a slam dunk, but we are partway there, and now we're set up to get the rest of the points, right? So now we're set up so that we can continue these goals.
Okay, and so I think I see it the same way, and that was sort of why I had my assessment was, okay, we made some progress on that, and then the hope is that we can then pull out 2 goals from the book that we want to adopt as 2 proper goals for 2025. I'm not sure if it's these ones specifically, and that's what the next part of this conversation would be. Juan has pulled out those sort of 6 ones that he identified there, and my hope is that we can talk about what are the ones that we want to pull out from the book. We did do a book study, and now we're turning that into 2 SMART goals that we haven't decided on yet.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. And because I agree, I don't think some of these bullet points are things we want to specifically do. I like looking at what Juan has recommended. Yeah, I agree with you, Corey.
Okay. And then just sort of a side note, I mean, there are options. 2 of those bullets mentioned pilot projects. I really believe in the strength of pilot projects, and we've got, some support from staff. The great thing is Manitou's a nice small place where, we've got the agility to try some things. And so that's why I had thought, without saying where, I wanted to say, let's make it a goal for this group that we're going to drive a pilot project in 2025. That was my thinking behind that. Okay, so we've kind of covered two of the three goals that I had in mind. One is the RPPs, one is a pilot project. And now if we go to our 2024 goal number 3, draft and finalize a bikeability master plan. We haven't completed that, and we have made a decision that we are going to hire a contractor to do a bikeability master plan. And we believe it should have a heavy focus on assessment of and consideration of PED infrastructure as well as bike infrastructure. So not bike in a vacuum, but a bike master plan that has a strong consideration of existing and future PED infrastructure.
Well,
So I was intending to roll that goal over as to a major one for 2025, and maybe might be our number 1 goal.
I guess I have a question on that. When you have a bike master plan and as a subset, you explore walkability, again, it's a subset. And I really think some of the goals that Susan had mentioned about an inventory for walkability is really its own goal. Because when you put the subset of walkability connected to the bike master plan and the consultant will be doing bikes, it just seems like the importance of having multimodality plan, it sort of limits it in my mind. That was just a comment I have. And the comment on pilots, I mean, I'm not sure what would be an example of something that we would drive. I could see us exploring, but I'm not sure what we're driving on a pilot. I'm not sure on that at all.
I have a comment toward that because, Joy, I think that makes a really great point. When we develop this group, everybody, maybe we don't call it the bikeability master plan, but the micro mobility master plan. So it's all inclusive of scooters and pedestrians and the bus routes and bicycles and the creek walk trail and e-bikes, right? All of them, and the one wheels and the little razor scooters. And so by calling it just simply a bikeability master plan, I agree that it does limit the focus just in context of what it's called even. So if we call it a micro mobility, and if we address it as such from the start to be inclusive of all of the walking, rolling, skating, right, everything, I think that would help us with our direction and our North Star.
That's a good point, Luke.
Yeah, so bike, ped, share, wheels, all kinds of mobility, but not a overall new mobility plan that also is like doing a deep analysis of transit and vehicles. But what you're saying is micromobility, bike, ped, and other other related things. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, with the very intentional inclusivity of the reality of where the bus stops are and where the parking lots are, because it is holistic. We can't have a micromobility plan or a walkability plan and not address where people will park, right? We need to include the mobility hubs. We need to include the reality that people are going to be driving cars to some extent, and there's going to be bus stops to some extent. So to say that it does not include transit, I would be hard pressed to say, because if I want to create a nice bike path from scratch, right, I would like to have it be close to the parking lot or a bus stop. And so make it common sense, holistic view of it. So where we identify it, but not totally, ignore the fact that it's existing.
Yeah, so let me speak to that a bit, Luke, because I've actually I've been really scratching my head about this for quite a while.
Sure.
I think so. I guess I mean the first thing I want to say is, for several years, the city of Colorado Springs has been asking us, Manitou, where do you want us to show on the map that if someone wants to ride a bike from Colorado Springs, where should they go? And we've been unable to answer that. And so I see the need for us to really establish our biking network as it's really overdue and it's really crucial. I think whenever you're looking at bike infrastructure, it makes sense that we would do full assessments of course, where people are and where they want to go. And I think it makes sense, and this was a request from staff also, was, we need to include future planning for ped infrastructure, not just bike, particularly because there can be lots of funding resources available for sidewalks and other kind of ped infrastructure. What I'm really nervous about is turning this into, hey, let's fix Manitou, and then we're going to have to go through a big long process where we've got Mountain Metro as a stakeholder, and we start talking about where we're going to change the future bus stops, and it turns into a $500,000 plan that we just really can't ever get anywhere. So I believe that we need to have a scope of work for a plan that we can accomplish in a year. That, in my mind, the highest priority is to answer some of these questions about the bike network with a high consideration of ped and other modes, is sort of how I would say it. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that comment.
Yeah, I agree completely. I would completely agree with that. The only thing that I would just like to highlight, that as we develop this plan, we do focus on, and you said it, where people are and where they're going, right? And so as we develop it, for example, we make Hiawatha a pretty good, X on the map, right? We have that parking lot as an X on the map. We have the Black Canyon area as an X on the map. We have Fields Park as an X on the map. We have the safe routes to school. We have different things that are outlined as where we're going to do that. But what I'm getting at is what you said, is we need to identify where people are and where they're going. So thank you for meeting me with that one.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we don't have to call it in this document, it's called a bikeability master plan, and I think I'm in agreement that it needs to be bigger than just bikes, as we consider this for a future goal. And I really don't want to turn it into, here's how we're going to revamp Mountain Metro, because I just don't think we'll be able to eat that elephant.
So micromobility, the definition of it is small, lightweight, human or electric powered transportation devices used by individuals, right? So it does not include buses.
Yeah. And
so I think micromobility is a good, back to my point, what we should be calling it is something that's inclusive of pedestrians, right?
Yeah.
And so that's
and existing and maybe sort of anticipated future mobility hubs, but we're not taking on transit.
You're both saying the same thing. You're using different terminology. And I agree with Luke. If we call it a bikeability plan, that sets a certain expectation externally that it's only about bikes. So it's about the label we use to be accurate, accurately reflect the scope of what we're looking at. So I would agree with Luke.
And Susan, you would say micromobility is a good name for it?
Yes, that would, especially if we add the definition of what that means, what Luke just shared, I think that explains it and would keep us out of the realm of transit issues.
Okay, great. And I think, part of the work that we would be taking on would be to set the scope. I mean, more than this discussion we're having right now, but I'm in complete agreement with what I'm hearing about the scope. Any other comments or thoughts about that? Okay, so we'll stop talking about a bikeability master plan and we will talk about a micromobility master plan. And we'll take that on as a goal that we want to, with the contractor, we want to work on a micromobility master plan.
Is it a contractor or a consultant?
What's the difference?
Well, a contract you hire to do the job, dig the shovels. A consultant gives advice to what he or she sees as needs in some kind of plan that we're asking for.
I think we want to hire someone to develop the plan, not to implement it.
Right, so you'd use consultant.
Okay. Okay, so a consultant-driven micromobility plan. Great. Okay. So that's kind of a rollover, but we're making some changes and we're going to get a better scope for that goal number 3. James, can you scroll down? All right. Onboarding manual. I'm still of the hope that we might be able to make some progress on this. I do have a draft of this that I created a couple of years ago. I think we can make movement on an onboarding manual for this group. We clearly didn't work on it this year. I think we talked about it last time, and I had suggested I would share some info with Susan. And Susan, am I all right to share the update that you emailed me?
Sure.
So my understanding is that Susan, you won't be able to continue to be on the board because you're moving out of Manitou. And so I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your time on the board and express my appreciation for your perspectives and suggestions and logical and calm way of looking at things. And I've really appreciated it. And I'm sad to learn that you won't be with us in the future. And I wonder what your ongoing interest is in helping us work on an onboarding manual.
I don't know that I'll be able to contribute a whole lot at this point since I'll be moving away and technically can't participate. I had come up with probably no different than what you already had, some list of specific documents, but I don't know that I can probably email that to you in the next couple of weeks, certainly before your next meeting, but that's probably about as far as I can get.
Okay. Well, I think that'd be very helpful if you could send me what you've got, and I'll take the notes that I came up with in the past, and then I will share them with the rest of this group. And I think we can make still make some progress on that before the end of this year. The onboarding manual. Okay, and then the last goal was to support the TRAM program with community engagement and outreach. And I think this is another one that we touched on it a little bit, but we were not involved as a board at all with the community engagement process. Some of us attended, but it wasn't a board action. And so this is another one where I feel it's valuable to say, if this was a goal for the MAP board, we didn't achieve it. If it's a goal for Manitou, I think progress was made, and kudos to staff for some work that they did. The trams didn't work out the way we hoped, but staff did a bunch of work on that and did hold some community engagement of that. And we did have a chance to weigh in a little bit on some of the concepts related to the tram. Any other thoughts or observations on that?
Yeah, I think that overall that goal 5 was not a SMART goal. I mean, I look at that and say support TRAM, support community engagement. Like us being there, technically, sure, we supported them, but it wasn't a SMART goal in the first place. Like I can read that and say, yeah, sure, we supported it. So I don't know that was even a SMART goal for us to be good, bad, or otherwise against. So that one is, to me, kind of by the wayside.
Yep, I think you're right. I don't think we can count it as a success for our board. Go ahead, Carl.
Well, I would maybe offer a glass half full response to this. I think kudos should be given to staff for actually trying something new with the trams and piloting that. It was discussed during multiple board meetings, and we had discussions around route suggestions. So I feel like we had, input and engagement on that. And we attended the open house, we rode the tram, so I think even if it was kind of us more individually and maybe not officially wearing the badge of, MAP board members, it feels like board members were there at the open house and have supported this. So, was it like a super slam dunk? No, but I think it's much more positive. And then the ultimate, impact is that the city staff and the city learned quite a bit from this pilot. We now have data, and hey, E-trams didn't work, or at least the cheap ones didn't work, right? And what it's going to take to potentially staff it. And so, yeah, we spent money on it, but we learned from it, right? And so the next iteration will be that much better because of it. So I think we should recognize that fact.
Good point,
Points,
Carl.
Carl.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, I think you're right, Carl. That's a great point. But to Luke's point, I'm not sure we would want to keep this as a goal for 2025 because it's probably not really a smart goal.
Yeah, that's fine. Agree with that.
And Corey, I did want to mention, I do have to list the 2024 goals, whether it's 3 or 4 that we did accomplish, because I need to show both 24 and then 25, our goal setting for the next year. And of course, we can reword a lot of this the way it reads. So,
Yeah,
and then
well, I mean, we're going to have to put together a presentation to give to council where we do this assessment. So I think this,
correct.
This discussion has been very valuable. So just, reflecting on those. So we don't have another meeting. We don't have another meeting until January of this board. What I think we're going to do is, Juan, you and I will have to work together to create a presentation for council. And I think that's going to be on November 12th. And I think I can't attend, and I've already checked, and I think Carl is going to make the presentation as vice chair because I'm booked on the 12th. So Carl, you'll be involved with that discussion too. So yeah, we'll go through and we'll make a presentation, and we will send it out to the board for review and comment before we finalize it and send it into council. We won't have a chance to meet as a group to talk about it, but we certainly will take feedback about it. Does that sound okay? Some nodding there, Carl.
Yes.
So that's okay. I have one other comment on goals and curious for others' feedback. So my interpretation, so I'm going to go from the glass half full to the glass half empty perspective with goals, is that this board has put out has a history of putting out a large and ambitious set of goals every year, and typically doesn't maybe always deliver on them. And so the 3 goals that you've kind of already laid out, the RPP update, the pilot mobility project, and the micro mobility master plan, are 3 very large and ambitious goals. And so if we're going to add more, I would encourage that we make sure that they're very small and easily achievable, such that we can hopefully accomplish what we say we're going to accomplish.
Well, Carl, I thought you said you're retiring, and so I think we've got unlimited horsepower to do this next year.
Just
so I think that's a really good point.
I agree. I think we keep our goals reasonable. Plus, we have to keep in mind, if we have all these big goals, that impacts staff and staff time too. So we want to be cognizant of how much staff commitment we're making.
Yeah, and one more thing, I promise I'll be quiet after this. I got captured in the minutes, but I think it would be really, really good for this board to review our goals every time we meet, right? What progress have we made? When are we going to, what's left to be done? Because for me, I always like forget, and maybe I should just open it up before every meeting and have it available. But it feels like we get to the end of the year and it's like, oh yeah, we said we're going to do that, and oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I agree totally. I think we should include our goals as a standing agenda item for every meeting, just at least for reference, so we're all looking at it at least once a month, and we can visit it in on it. So
And let me just chime in a little bit. So, one of our biggest things is just to meet and discuss the unknown issues that are going to be coming in the next year also. So our goals don't have to be as ambitious as last year's either. We are going to meet and we're going to talk about the issues that are happening currently. So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Rolf. I mean, let's take an example as Rainbow Falls opening up, right? Like, I don't think as a group, did we ever even discuss that? And that's a pretty major impact on the west side of Manitou. I mean, talk about elephants in the room. Let's leave space for those to just show up to our doorstep.
I agree totally. I think a very important role that this board serves is to be sort of a community link and liaison, and to help advise council on, on things that are coming up, and we can't predict all of those. So we do need to have some flexibility and agility to react to things as they come up. Okay, so I think, based on looking at last year's goals, and we had this little discussion, we've agreed on 3 fairly large goals. And now the question is, can we look at the book study and pick some other things, or should we pick some other things that we want to also include in our presentation to council? And Carl?
So I'll throw something out there that has been mentioned multiple times. I think we should add a goal that we're going to try and provide some constructive feedback on Mountain Metro transit route improvements ahead of, in a timely fashion before the every 6 month, review with council. So we got to work it backwards, right? Before the council gets the Mountain Metro presentation, us to have enough time to give feedback and make recommendations. It feels like we've always been in a habit of discussing it kind of the month it's being presented to council. So I think that would be a nice goal to have and would be achievable.
Okay, I like that. The other thing that occurred to me as we're talking about it is just this idea about, hosting or planning a community meeting, like really letting the community know that our board is here to be a liaison with the community. I think some of that can happen through this micromobility master plan. I think that's, like community meetings will be an important part of that. And so maybe that itch can be scratched through our work on a micromobility plan. But that's sort of another thing that I hear us talking about, like we want to be engaged with the community. And I think, to a big extent, if we're successful with some kind of a pilot program, that's also going to include some community engagement. But if we were to take that, then we would have, the idea of doing a pilot, the idea of looking at the RPP, the idea of a micromobility master plan, and having some meaningful input on transit. Those are 4 goals. And is that a hand up, Carl?
Yeah. Yes. So I really liked, I think it was Juan's goal on that, to work with the Chamber of Commerce to host a citywide bike walk to school work day to promote walking and biking as a mobility option. And maybe that could be, coordinated with the bike month, bike to work day, so that there's more impetus behind that. But I thought that was really well written, and with support that would also be achievable. And there's, there actually, so I know like the school districts have a bike walk today. So, we could try and coordinate it with like the school district, or we could try and coordinate with the statewide bike to work just to get more participation. But I really like that last goal from Juan.
I think one of the things I like about it is like really easy to draw a line around. It's you can say what it is, and it's easy to tell if you did it, and it's like one thing that we could focus on.
And I know the school district is always looking for support for their walk and bike to school days. And so, again, to get visibility for the board in the community, that wouldn't be a bad thing to coordinate. So.
Okay, so good comments, Carl. So looking at now, we're looking back at these 6 things. So Carl mentioned that one right at the bottom. The one right above it is the walkability inventory. So that clearly would be part of what we're taking on as we work with a consultant for the micromobility plan. And to some extent, I think the residential bike parking might fit in with that. Like I would expect that would be an output of a micromobility master plan, would be recommendations for bike parking. So am I right in saying sort of numbers 4 and 5 are probably covered by what we're taking on by getting a professional to help us with a micromobility master plan?
And 3.
So 3 is Pike Ride, and the specific goal of 50%. I mean, I see Pike Ride increasing organically as we've got these stations in place. We can always look for opportunities. But maybe 3 will probably improve, but maybe we don't need to take that on as a specific goal.
And on the Pike Ride, I mean, I think the goal to increase ridership has been expressed from everyone from the mayor to this board. My question is, what would we as the board do to increase ridership, right? I mean, so that goal would need further expansion from my perspective for clarification and what we would actually be doing to help increase use.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, Corey, I mean, we've already seen the numbers doubling just with the additional hubs. So it feels like it's already happening organically.
Yeah, the way
it
I would
sounds
think,
more like a staff function.
in the way that I would see that being possible would be if we were to use hindsight, right? Look at last year and say, let's see if we can add more bike hubs. That would be and support staff in adding more bike hubs and identify where those would be, which we did, right? But now that they're here, I don't know that it needs to continue to roll over. I do agree with, I think it was Corey's sentiment that says it should be, no, it was, anyway, it should be rolled into the micromobility master plan. Absolutely, it should be part of that still. But I don't believe Pike Ride should be its own goal.
Right, it's a major consideration in the micromobility master plan.
Yeah, doesn't matter either way with me if it's its own goal or included.
Okay, and so I think we're making progress here. I mean, I think if we look at the first item on this list related to the Dillon, the Dillon process is going to happen, and we're going to learn a lot as that unfolds. That too will be obviously a major consideration in a micromobility master plan. So they kind of relate to that. And so then it brings us back to this number 2, which is plan the use of shuttles for a special event. And I mean, right now I'm wondering if we could sort of say, hey, that's not the one. And if we're to pick one on this list of 6 that we're going to add to the 4 that we've identified, I like Carl's suggestion that we focus on one really community engagement event and to work with the chamber on that and to put some effort from this board. We would form a subcommittee, a working committee, and we would, we'd have some people that would actually work on that and meet with the chamber and talk about what that would look like and talk with the school and, obviously in conjunction with staff, but to really try to move the needle on that. Would we have agreement on going in that direction?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I think in some way we've actually, we've almost touched all of the 6 that came out of the book study, and the one that we are agreeing to, and please speak up. Now's the time to speak up if you don't agree. The one that we're going to try to add as a goal and to put some work into is this, to do some kind of event, especially working with the school, bike walk to school, bike walk to work.
I couldn't agree more. That sounds fantastic.
Correct.
Well, that's really great. I feel like we've got 5 good goals.
I'm still confused about the pilot goal. I'm not sure how we measure that. I'm not sure what the goal is for that. It just seems so vague to me.
I agree. I think that to say, let's try something somewhere.
Yeah, I agree with you, Luke. It just like we have all these other ones that are very ambitious and very broad
Specific.
and need to be, there's only 7 of us. And so I just don't see, I think if a pilot project develops out of one of the other goals that we'd like to try, then we would work with staff to see if it's viable to ask council, but to just set it up as a goal, to me, it just is confusing.
As I think through that, would it, and I'm trying to help justify it for my own thought process, having it there as part of these other goals, would you agree that it kind of sets a tone for the group? So we have these processes, we are leaving intentionally room for the unknown. We're trying to do these things, and then having a goal that says somewhere along the way, we're intentionally going to leave room for the unknown, and we're intentionally going to try something. Is that more of a tone setting atmosphere and a tone setting goal for the group? And do we want that?
I guess
go on.
We're not setting tone with goals. We set a tone because we're a mobility and parking board. I don't think we need to say to anyone that we need to set the unknown. I think you can say we'll discuss issues as they come up, and you can measure it by counting the issues or something, but you don't need to set a tone. I mean, you're almost asking to have a space saver, and I think the other goals will develop. I just don't think we need to set a tone. I mean, we already set a tone about things, so I think it's a good try there, though, Luke.
Yeah, just thinking through that. Yeah.
Trying to include something.
So if I can just add a little more context, and it, this came out of the discussion that I was able to have with staff about it. The idea of doing pilots, that was referenced in last year's goals, and we didn't do any. We talked about the idea of doing a pilot study on Crystal Hills Boulevard.
But Corey, that was you. You developed that. You talked to the people. You did all that. The board didn't. You came up with the route and you sort of presented.
So if you can let me finish, Joy.
Yeah, but I think you
Can
have
you just let me finish for a minute?
I think you need to be challenged on that.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a chance to speak, but if you don't mind just giving me the
I
floor
don't
right now,
mind,
because
Corey, go
I'd like a chance to finish.
Go ahead and finish, Corey.
Okay. So the discussion that we had with staff was, Crystal Hills Boulevard is a relatively uncontroversial place where we've got really wide street. We've got a complete lack of any multimodal infrastructure. lends itself very well to do some kind of it lends itself well to doing some street changes. And the idea was, could we try some different configurations and learn about doing pilots? And that's one location where it probably would be fairly easy to do. It probably wouldn't meet with a lot of community pushback, and we could use it as a chance to develop the tools that we think we will want into the future when it comes time to evaluate maybe more tricky infrastructure. And in the discussion that we had with staff, it was, well, you know, maybe we don't want to tie it specifically to a location because we don't know for sure that it would be possible there. It looks like it probably would be possible to do something like that on Crystal Hills Boulevard, but we're not totally sure. And so that was why we sort of reframed it as, well, maybe we would just set it up to try to do a pilot somewhere. We would start with Crystal Hills Boulevard and see if it makes sense, but we wouldn't be tied to doing a pilot there. So that was the thinking. And if I could get Juan or James to kind of chime in and see if I've expressed that properly, but that was the reason why we framed it that way.
Well, Corey, again, when you're saying we, when it really wasn't we, it was you and maybe talking to the staff. And to think that the Crystal Park residents aren't going to have strong opinions about changing their road and changing how traffic comes down it. I was on a Crystal committee, and we were just dealing with sidewalks, and there's a lot of controversy and a lot of issues. But again, there was a map presented, there was things presented on a plan, and a consultant was asked to give a price on how much money would be spent for the consultant on making some kind of map or some kind of thing. It just seems like it was done and it was moving on with not a lot of collaboration with this board. And so
I think you're talking about Crystal Park Road. I think you're talking about Crystal Park Road, not Crystal Hills Boulevard. Is that right?
Either way, but if you think the people up there aren't going to be involved, then it's, you know, this is Manitou. We get involved in all kinds of things. So, and that's why I take issue with just saying a pilot. I mean, if a pilot develops from a need that we have or a goal we have, then we would fill it out. But just to say the road was what we need, I mean, I just don't think that was done very collaboratively. And that's, you know, that's my comment.
Other thoughts or comments on that topic? Carl, I see your hand up.
I'll just say, and I don't say that this constitutes full public input, but there, having been on the traffic safety board, there were multiple traffic safety complaints on Crystal Hills Boulevard, so it is not unprecedented to be looking at different options to try and improve safety on that roadway.
The really good thing
I actually had more of a question. Wouldn't any potential pilot program or pilot project be something that would come out of the consultant for the micromobility? Would that not naturally come from their recommendations and be something then that we would take on?
And that's why I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think that's what Joy was getting at in the very beginning, and why I agreed with her is that whole goal of to create a pilot seems as though it's misplaced. And just to ring the bell and kind of back up past some of these detail specifics, just to have the goal of having a pilot program, I don't believe fits in to what our goals should be, because it's not a SMART goal. And it would, I think to your point exactly, it would naturally develop from some of these more project specific goals that we have. I think we will be inevitably forced with saying, hey, should we try this? Should we try that? Should we implement a pilot? Yes or no? You know, I think that will come naturally. So to move on from my comments, moving on would be that I don't believe that we should have the pilot program be our goal.
Thanks for those comments. I think, you know, for me, I'm interested in advocating for this, and here's why. I think the idea that Manitou would gain some experience and expertise at doing pilots in a place where it was easy to do, I think is really valuable. I think it's not at all certain that a micromobility master plan would indicate that we want to try something as a pilot. What I think is more likely is it would say, here's where you should have the infrastructure. It doesn't really talk about pilots. I think the value of doing a pilot, and, you know, it's mentioned in the book several times, and it's, you know, it was mentioned in our goals for last year. The idea with a pilot is you get to try something, and it's non-committal. It's sort of testing the waters. And what you can learn is, hey, we didn't measure the right things, or we didn't anticipate this, or you know, you learn a lot by trying something, anything. And so I guess that's you know, partly because it was reflected in last year's goals, partly because it is suggested in the book, and it's partly my own feeling that I think we ought to get good at pilots in Manitou, because I hear a lot of pushback and fear when we talk about changing infrastructure. Oh goodness, if we put in a bike lane, then I'm not going to be able to get where I need to go in my car. And I think we need to be a little bit more able to try some things and know what to measure, and then to be able to report back to the community with some data on that. So that's my feeling behind why I feel that pilots is separate from, you know, I'm saying a pilot anywhere is valuable, even if it's not connected to these other goals. And I'm just the chair. I'm the facilitator of this group, and I'm not gonna push that if that's not what the group wants to do. So, you know, thanks for giving me a chance to respond to those comments. Carl, did you have another comment?
I was just going to say, I kind of have mixed feelings on this. I agree with Joy and Luke that the goal is a bit ambiguous, but I also, you know, feel that, you know, like you said, pilots are important, and no change is going to be widely accepted by everyone. There's always going to be someone who's unhappy, but, you know, maybe we could embellish that goal. And, you know, for me, I think it's important that we make changes and try pilots that attempt to improve safety for people and are not about convenience for people in motor vehicles, right? It should be about safety for all users, and not about the speed that I get to drive, you know, down some small road. And so, you know, I don't know if that helps add any clarification to that particular goal, but just, you know, it is fairly broad, and if we could make it maybe more specific. And I totally support the concept that we, as the board and staff, I think we do need to try things, because the status quo isn't working, right? We have too many cars and too many, you know, people parking, and you know, it's out of control, and we need to give people other options. And so pilots are a great way to try new ideas to try and solve that problem, versus putting in more roads and more parking lots. That's not just going to bring more cars.
And Carl, I would say that we've had many pilots in Manitou, and we've learned a lot of how they operate and how they are successful or not. We did with Pike Ride. I mean, we did pilots for the trams, and we found out things. So I, you know, it's not to just have a goal to have a pilot. It just, to me, it just doesn't meet what we should be doing. I mean, I don't know how you can say it's easy when you're interrupting people, or how they're driven, or how they don't drive, or how they want to drive, or, you know, it just seems so broad, and just to say in your face, we're going to have a pilot and we don't know what it is, but we're going to have one. That defeats our purpose as being guided by goals. If we have a goal about RPP, and we want to try something about bringing in more time where people can park there if the RPP agrees with it and maybe try something, but just to say we're going to have a pilot and because it's easy and we learn from it. We've already learned a lot from pilots if you go back in our history. So
Yeah, Joy, I don't disagree. The goal is very broad and ambiguous. I would also say that I don't think even pilots are not easy. Nothing's easy, right? So I wouldn't use that term, but I do think, I support Corey's concept of, hey, this is something that we should be trying to support staff and trying to come up with recommendations. Whether it needs to be an official goal or that broad a goal, or maybe it should be, we're going to try the Crystal Hills Boulevard pilot. And maybe that's more specific, but then again, that might lead to backlash. And so
So let me jump in and ask this of the group, and I think it's great conversation. So we had, in my discussion with staff, we'd moved away from being specific with the idea that like, well, what we think might be possible might not be possible. So maybe we keep it more vague. But would it be more appealing to say we would like to investigate the feasibility of a pilot safe micromobility infrastructure project on Crystal Hills Boulevard? And of course, that would require some public input. Like, it's not saying we're going to do it, but we'd put it on and say it's a pilot, and this is where we intend to try to do it.
Well, again, Corey, what is the purpose of that? Why Crystal? Why there? Why not over here? Why here? Why there? Which people will be affected? How will it affect the streetscape? I mean, there's all kinds of questions. To call that one out, to me, is putting the horse before the cart. You're trying to say something about a pilot on Crystal Hills. That's the place where it should be. It's like who chooses that? Who says this is where we're going to do it? If we don't have a reason for it, just because it's there and someone has a map and someone talked to a consultant, that doesn't mean that's the place we would have it. That's not being collaborative. That's being directive. But again, that's my opinion on that. And we're trying to squeeze a goal out of something that some don't agree it's too restrictive, or it's too broad, or it's too whatever, but we're trying to squeeze a goal out when we have goals.
So Joy, just respectfully, I'll push back a tiny bit on that. So there have been traffic safety complaints on Crystal Hills Boulevard. So it is not unprecedented for the city to take some sort of action to try and mitigate and address that and listen to those citizens. To ignore those citizens' complaints and concerns and collecting, their signatures from all their neighbors supporting that complaint, they are a constituent that we need to represent and to listen to. And so to just blindly say we're not going to do anything is also not doing them any justice.
Carl, and I respect what you're saying, but there's complaints on Via Linda Vista about speeders and danger, and there's complaints on Ruxton about it too, and their citizens. It's just like somehow, how do we decide that's the place that it needs to be? When we call it out in a goal, that means that's it, and that we've done all this background study of the other places where citizens complain. Becker's Lane has many complaints. So it's sort of like, why there?
Well,
I think the answer to that question of why there is we've got data that shows that there's unsafe speeding. It's widely recognized that that's a really, really wide roadway that encourages speeding. And there is plenty of space on that roadway where you could try a few different things and collect some data. And then, it's temporary. You're not committing to anything. And you would fairly quickly learn, I think that there is this fear that if we make any changes, it's going to have these terrible impacts on car drivers. But if we put some safe infrastructure in there temporarily, and we were able to show that, average speeds don't go down, but maximum speeds do, and more people start using it for bike and ped access, that's a really great story. And then then you could start to investigate. I mean, I would shudder to think of trying to do a pilot study on Ruxton where there's just really not any space to do anything. And some of these other roadways don't have any space. The reason for Crystal Hills Boulevard is because people speed like crazy. We got data that shows that. And that roadway is really, really wide. It's much wider than it needs to be for a 20-mile-an-hour road.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about data and we know this and we know that. I don't know that. I haven't seen anything on that. I see it on Becker's. I see it on some other places, but it's just like, it's like you're talking about things that I haven't seen or understand. And you're talking about doing it there. And, there's other parts with citizens that also feel that they're being neglected or not neglected. But to say there's only speeders on that, it's a steep hill, so you're going to have speeders. It's a steep hill here, or you're going to have a lot of traffic on a road. I mean, look at El Paso. I mean, I guess I still would disagree with making pilot as a goal. But that's in my opinion. But to say that the boulevard there is the only place, it's.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, Joy, is that adding the specificity of a location in this case doesn't make it more palatable for you.
No, and I think that Susan's point about it should come out if you have a consultant and they're really doing their job with bikes and all kinds of modality, then it seems like there would be justification to say, could we set up a pilot? But to say we're going to set it up before we have done it, to me, it's just not very wise to do it that way.
Well, remember, a pilot's temporary, but anyways, good. Carl, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
All the time, Corey, the purpose of the pilot is not just to be temporary, it's to see if it works. And it may become permanent, as it did with our bike ride, and as it did with other things. So, it didn't with the trams because they couldn't handle the altitude or whatever, but it usually becomes permanent.
Thank you. Go ahead, Carl.
So I would just say, and I agree with Joy that the goal is currently stated is ambiguous. We need to address that. But I did want to talk about if we had a goal for a pilot on Crystal Hills Boulevard, that by no means, eliminates any other part of the city as future pilot projects, right? Because Joy is spot on. There are definitely multiple safety concerns all over the city. Pawnee, Washington, Becker's. I mean, all over the city, we have the same issue. And so to Corey's point, if we could initiate this pilot and have a positive income and give residents hope that their voices will be heard, safety concerns would be heard, and that we can try different things to address their safety, I think that's a hugely positive thing. And having that goal, that's Crystal Hills Boulevard specific, doesn't preclude us making recommendations for other parts of the city and building on the success and the data that we collect from that pilot. So I wholly support Corey's concept behind the goal.
Okay, well, I think it's really great discussion. Susan, see your hand up.
I just had one more thought. Is it the role of this board? I mean, I'm trying to get back to what is the role of this board as an advisory board? Is it to identify and implement, or are we is our role model to support opportunities for pilots that the staff identifies? It's just a question of roles that I'd love some clarification on.
And that's a good point, Susan. It really is at the basis of everything, is what is our role? And I'm not sure our role is, we're to support staff and advise council. I don't see us doing pilots all over, but that's a good point.
I would answer by saying I think it's within the scope of an advisory board to council. Our primary goal is to advise council on mobility and parking issues. I think our secondary goal is to act as the voice, an additional voice for the citizens on topics of mobility and parking. And my feeling is that is within the scope of this board to to encourage and support. Obviously, this would have to be a staff action. If we were to do a pilot, it would require staff engagement on it. And we've got some positive indications that staff is interested. And as Joy pointed out, we have done other pilots. The other one I would notice is the reverse in parking. That was a pilot. And you know what? We didn't have all the answers, and we tried it, and looks like we're going to stick with that. And that's something that worked. And it required somebody to make a decision to say we're going to try this. And I believe, and this is my belief, and I'm just the chair of this board, but I believe it is within our scope to encourage and support staff in trying innovative things that serve the city as it relates to mobility and parking. So I feel it's within scope for us to recommend this, but if it's not the will of the board, then I'm not gonna make you stay here till 9 o'clock. So I think it would be good to sort of wrap this up. And what I'd like to do is, invite any final comments. If there's anything that hasn't been said or somebody hasn't had a chance to say what's on their mind, please do. And then otherwise, I think maybe we could take a sort of a, I don't know if it would be a vote or what would be the exact right process, but I would like to see this as a goal. And if it were more palatable to be specific and to say, we're going to try and investigate and see if it makes sense to do a pilot on Crystal Hills Boulevard, and it turns out it isn't, and we fail at that goal, then that's okay. Or if it's more palatable to leave it more open and say, we think we'd like to do a pilot, but we're not totally sure where it's going to be, I think that could also be okay. Are there any other comments that haven't been shared at this time? Okay, so maybe I'll make it easy and say, with a show of hands, who would like us to remove the idea of doing a pilot from this year's goals?
Well,
I don't necessarily agree with that, because I 100% am totally for pilots. I just don't want it to be on the goal list. So the way you phrase that, I would have to raise my hand. Yes, I want that removed from the goal list. However, I want to be very specific when I say I want to support pilots, right? I just don't want that to be an overarching, ambiguous goal.
Okay.
So with the context of what we're talking about now, with one of the 5 or 6 goals presented to council, I would support what you just said and have to raise my hand to remove it from that goal list.
Okay.
I would
Carl, do
agree.
you have a comment, or are you voting to nuke it?
Offer a potential modification that might be more palatable to the broader board. Would it be more palatable to phrase that goal as the board would partner with city staff to identify, 1 or 2 new pilot projects, the feasibility of 1 or 2 new pilot projects to implement in 2025?
Carl, unless it's really tied to a goal, I just don't see the feasibility or the need to have a goal about the pilot. I agree with Luke. If a pilot develops out of our other goals, which we have some very broad goals, and and our role as the board, I really think just to try to make it palatable isn't working. I just would not. I'm with Luke. I would not have that as a goal. I don't have anything against pilots, but I don't think that this should be a separate goal. And definitely not mentioning the boulevard. So I would say no.
Okay.
I would say she makes a good point. I like your idea of nuancing it, Carl, but then it doesn't become a SMART goal. So it shouldn't be a goal, I guess. If we're trying to do SMART goals, I guess.
Well,
Ah,
I think an option could be we leave that off, we leave it off the list of goals and we keep it as sort of a topic of conversation, but we don't list it and present it as a goal to council. Any disagreement with that direction? So, okay. And I just want to thank everyone for a really, really good conversation about that. I mean, I recognize I'm pretty eager to try some things, and I think infrastructure pilots is something that we need to get good at Manitou, because I think there's a lot of fear that comes up when we start talking about, potential changes to roadways, and I think we need to get good at that. But I'm completely supportive of the direction the board's saying, and in saying, I heard two things. One is we've already got some fairly big goals on here that are already going to be, we'll have a full plate. And there's a little discomfort with both the ambiguity of talking about a process without knowing where it is, and also proceeding with a specific location without having, a really direct proposal about why we'd selected that location. So I'm happy to align with that and to support what I'm hearing from the board. So
Agreed.
I think with that we will remove the pilot concept from a goal. So the goals we're going to move forward with is looking at the RPP, the micromobility master plan, having meaningful input on transit improvements, and to work with the chamber to host one important improvement of bike walk, maybe in conjunction with Bike Month or something like that. So I'm looking at 4 goals that we're probably going to move forward, and we'll get those written up and sent back to the board for your comments and approval.
Is there, I've got a question. As far
Yes,
as goals, I presented it last meeting, just in public discussion at the end of the meeting, the importance to me for creating safe routes to school. And I understand that, of course, the safe routes to school will be a part of the micromobility master plan. But to me, I feel as though that is the utmost important part of anything that I do on this board. And so I would like to propose a goal for 2025 of developing some safe routes to school. And it would be similar to developing a one-time event with the chamber and the school districts to, have a bike to work, bike to school day event hosted by the city in all coordination with all parties, right? But for our board to move forward with the bikeable or safe routes to school. And maybe, that's part of the micromobility plan. And if so, I would like to make it a very prominent part of that. But as I move forward on this board, my personal goal, and I'll bring it up every meeting here on out, is that I want safe routes to school identified with waypoint signage, with all kinds of pilot programs, with all kinds of everything we can do to make those routes safer for the kids to get to school. That's my goal. And I would love to see the board adapt to some type of that. What does the board have to say with that? I mean, I would like to see that.
thank you, Luke. Carl?
So Luke, I had actually written that down on my list here. I maybe offer a friendly amendment of, hey, the board will develop and publish recommended routes to school and share with, the school district and city staff. And then, like you said, we could build on that with, signage and all the other stuff that goes with that. But, just identifying recommended routes and getting that, solidified on a map somewhere, right? Would be a huge first step and something that we could definitely achieve in 2025.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to phrase it.
I say recommended versus safe because safe has certain implications. And so I would
Yeah.
probably say recommended to start with.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I've been using the term safer, not to imply it's safe, but it could be safer.
Right.
So it occurs to me, I mean, I really think that, you know, if we can hold as a high focus in the scope of our micromobility consulting project, that we want it to include safe routes to school, to me, it fits in perfectly with that. It prevents a duplication of effort. What I wouldn't want to see is we're off developing our safe routes to school, and we are hiring a consultant to look at Manitou as a whole and figure out where people are trying to go. And, you know, we don't necessarily have the expertise other than we can ride around and see, you know, we can ride around and say what we think. Knowing that we're going to have the resources of a professional consultant that is going to help us identify desired locations and typical travel routes, I think the right way to do it might be to add that clearly into the scope of our micromobility master plan, and then to really roll our sleeves up and be an active part of developing that master plan with the consultant. Is that making sense to you, Luke? I mean, I don't want you to drop it at all. And if we weren't going to get into this paid consultant to do it, then to me that makes more sense. But I'd rather see us combine efforts with the consultant that we're going to be working with.
Yeah, as I think that as it's written to when we propose these goals, right? Like the goal number 3, it wouldn't be just written as micromobility master plan. It would have like a paragraph explaining it.
Right.
And in that, as long as it's a huge forefront focus, I'm okay with that. But I just want to be very clear with my intent on what I want out of this.
Yep. Okay. That's clearly heard. And so I'll do my best to you know, work with staff as we come up with these goals, and then we'll send it back to you and see if it meets that bar. And then, you know, my hope is that we can say, yeah, these are goals that we agree to, and then that's where you'll really roll your sleeves up and be a part of, you know, a part of shaping that plan.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I failed at my goal of keeping our meetings under 2 hours. But I really appreciate this great conversation. I think we've got directions for setting the goals for next year. And I think that takes us to, well, we're almost at adjournment. I guess there's sort of a procedural thing that I want to bring up. So we had an issue this month where Juan had sent out a request for confirmation that we could attend. And without positive confirmation, Juan thought we weren't going to have quorum. It turned out we did have enough quorum. And I want to set some norms for our committee here. So our next meeting is scheduled for January 22nd. And there's 2 ways we can go. One is we can say we need positive confirmation, and Juan's going to send that out with X days in advance of the meeting, and the requirement is that you respond positively that you'll be there. The other is the norm of this goal of this committee is we know when the next meeting is, and if you're not able to attend, then you let Juan and me know beforehand so that you're not wasting staff time and the rest of the committee's time. And you know, we count on you to say if you can't be there. Is there a feeling from the group about the direction? I think we, you know, legally we could go either way. Is there a feeling from the group about how we want to handle that?
I mean, Corey,
Corey, I was gonna mention Denise did respond to your email, and she did mention that she's tried that in the past before, but she pretty much would like to keep it as we're doing it because that's the way our other boards are doing it when it comes to a quorum. I don't know if you got a chance to
I did see
see
that
her
email,
reply.
and I don't think that's universally true, Juan. I think, for example, the OSAC committee doesn't do it that way, and I think we've got the ability to do the way we want. The important thing is what we don't want is we don't know if people are showing up, and then next thing you know, we're sitting in a meeting and everyone's waiting around and we don't have quorum. So we've had a problem in the past where people simply don't show up to meetings, and I think that's not acceptable. And so
It's been working, and I think if the city manager feels that how she wants to do it with her boards, it's the same way on the other board I'm on. You know, we get an email, we send in that we're going to be here or not, and that way there's a double check so that we don't call a meeting when there's not a quorum. I don't think it's a problem. I don't see it as a problem. It's working.
Well,
Whether OSOC does it exactly that way or not, but this is the way we've been doing it and it works. I don't understand what the problem is. Because
I mean, the problem is what happened this week is where we didn't get responses and we thought we didn't have quorum, but in fact we did.
So
then
here's
then everyone should agree to answer emails and make sure that Juan knows if you're coming or not. I mean, you're making it into some kind of formal something when it doesn't need to be.
so
And
here's
Luke,
can I-
Luke, let me recognize you in just a second here, but I do want to make one thing clear. We are not Denise's board. We are a board
I
of
did not
public.
say that, Corey. I'm not going to let you finish that. We are not Denise's board. That is a ridiculous statement.
Well, that's what I heard you say. And so I want to make it clear that
No,
we don't
I did
exist for
not say
Denise. We
that.
exist,
I
we
did not
exist as
say
a
that.
public board to advise council, and we have the ability to set up norms for our board the way we think it should work. Please go ahead, Luke.
Best of both worlds. I agree with how it's done now. I want to play nice with the standard, the recommended standard. I think that asking for a quorum, I think it's really nice that one sends out a pulse to the board and gets feedback. And now here's where my best of both worlds comes in. When that quorum isn't met, I super appreciated the, hey, are you sure? Are you sure you can't make it? Because we didn't hear from you. And just, that was really much appreciated because I was like, oh shit, I forgot to RSVP. And I am available, but 9 times out of 10, I'll respond to that, A or nay. And I don't see the need to do it the other way, especially since it plays nice with how the city staff wants it. And it sets a norm and it sets a precedence with the others. And if we can do both to say, hey, can you make it? Yes. And if they don't hear from me, it's like, hey, just so let everybody know we're on the fence of even having a quorum. That I think that was a really much appreciated pulse and just last minute chance to do it. So I guess my final thought on that is that I don't necessarily see a change needed, but also I appreciated your nudge. Sorry to play devil's advocate.
I mean, I want to be clear. I'm the chair of this board, but I don't have time to chase everybody. We're all adults. We can look at our calendars. You know, Juan didn't get a response and he had decided to cancel the meeting. And then we spoke on the phone and I'm like, well, I think some more people can come, but they didn't respond. I don't want to have to do that. And I don't think I need to do that as a chair. I think, you know, we need to make an agreement here to each other and to staff and agree on what we're going to do. So, you know, if the agreement is Juan's going to send out a request for quorum, then we all have to make sure we do that. And
well,
you know,
sure, yeah. And if this is an opportunity to chastise the ones that didn't do that, then sure, I'll take my spanking. But at the end of the day, I'll do better next time. I don't think we should change the process.
I agree with Luke. I responded, you know, I don't know if other people respond, but I always respond.
Yep,
So
you were one of the few that did, Joy.
Yeah, because that's my responsibility as a board member, whether you're the chair or not, it's a responsibility you have. And I agree with Luke. It's just like sometimes we make mistakes and they double check us. And most of the time we're all pretty good at it.
Carl, did you have a comment?
Not to belabor this discussion, because I don't, you know, we can go either way, but, you know, for me, I have a job. I don't monitor my personal email. I check it on the weekends. So, you know, if you're sending me something on Mondays asking me to respond by close of business, sorry, it's not going to happen. My responsibility, I signed up for this board assignment and I intend to make the meetings. If I'm not, I'm going to let people know, hey, I'm out of town or whatever. To me, that's the responsible thing to do, and actually would be less work for the staff. But if staff wants to send out reminder emails, that's fine. I mean, but just, personal email doesn't work for me with my existing situation. So thank you.
Okay. On that, I mean, I fall closer to where you're at, Carl. I'm like, I know it's my responsibility, and if I'm not going to be there, I will actively let somebody know. And I might miss an email asking me about the quorum, but we could go either way. But let me ask you this, Carl, what would be the right timing for you? I think there was a request sent out on Friday. I didn't see the request for quorum until Tuesday morning when I got the notice that the meeting had been canceled. And that's when it sort of set off this panic, and we were able, I think it's really important we had this meeting, and I'm glad we didn't cancel it. What would be the right timing that would work for this group if we were to say, look, we are going to ask for your positive confirmation leading up to the meeting. When do you want that email to say, hey, are you going to make it?
My thought is that the only reason I'm even suggesting this route, this directive, is that it is from staff, right? Denise wants it this way. Juan has made it an SOP, right? This is his standard of operation. And I'm happy to abide by that. I'm honestly, I could go either way. I'm okay with, because we haven't always done this, right? Before Juan, we haven't always done this. It's just a courtesy to make sure that we don't waste everybody's time to get there. And I see the want and the urge to go back to that, because even when we did it before, we never had a problem where we all met and didn't have quorum. I don't remember a single time where we met anywhere and didn't have a quorum and had to call it, right? So I honestly couldn't go either way. The only reason I'm going that way is because it's coming down from city staff, and that's their SOP. Really. I mean, if they want me to RSVP, whether it's 10 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, I don't care. And the fact that I missed it this week, shame on me, and I'm apologetic.
Nice comment, Luke.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of torn. I tend to, I know we can do it. We can do it. The main thing is we don't want to waste people's time. And if we can all live up to our responsibility of being on this board, in some form, we have to make sure that we know whether people are going to be here or not. So I guess could I ask you again, Carl, like, I'm the same way. I'm not always monitoring my personal email, but what would be the right time frame that you could live with this kind of a process where there needs to be a positive confirmation?
So for me personally, not speaking for everyone, if we're going to have to say that we actually are going to adhere to our board responsibilities and show up, and staff can send the email on Friday, and that we have until close of business on Monday to respond, that would be acceptable.
Okay.
And that's the Friday before the meeting.
Okay. And, maybe we could all make it a thing to try to remember to positively respond. To know that's coming and that's an expectation. I
mean, in the perfect world, I'd love to see the packet available on the weekend as well, because that's when I really have time to really prepare for these meetings. Otherwise, I'm kind of cramming at the last minute. But that's above and beyond what we're discussing, because I'd like to deal with it all at once. But again, that's my personal ask, and I'm not trying to speak for the board, but just throwing that out there.
Okay. All right. Well, we don't have everyone here. I think I'll have some more conversation with Juan about it. But what I'm hearing is, if we can set up some structure and we keep keep to it regularly, then we could work with the positive confirmation process. Okay, thanks for the comments, and we'll follow up some more and keep people informed. So again, apologies, meeting's running long. This is now our chance for board correspondence. Please do mark your calendars for January 22nd. And let's go around the room and see if anyone's got anything else to share. We'll start with Joy.
No, it's 7:45. I have nothing more to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl?
I'm fine. Thanks, Corey.
Luke?
Yeah, just wanted to say thanks to everybody. I understand that I may have come across as a little short tonight. So thanks for everybody understanding my opinions, and I hope to have not offended anybody. You're all my friends, and I'm having a party on Saturday if anybody wants to come by.
Thank you, Luke.
Thanks, Luke.
And Susan?
Obviously, I just wanted to say thank you all for allowing me to participate on this board. It's been a great learning experience for me, and I've enjoyed it and learned a lot. So thank you, and I will miss you all. And I'm sorry, unless you change the rules where I can participate living outside of town, I'm afraid I'm going to have to make this my last meeting. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, on behalf of the board, Susan, we're really, really pleased that you were able to contribute in the way that you have, and we'll really miss you.
Thanks, Susan.
Okay, well, I think with that we are adjourned, and thanks everyone for sticking through some tricky conversations. And I'll echo what Luke says. You know, it's good to have these conversations, and none of it's personal, and I'm glad we had the chance to work through a lot of things. And with that, we wish you all a good night. We'll see you online.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.